Hey, Hangout is live. I am starting this in anticipation that maybe some other people will show up. Um, if not, no worries, because I don't have time to actually go through some of the code for the project we're working on. I'm actually just going to go through the chapter. So if that's okay with everybody else. I just recently moved to my new place, and I need to actually get dinner. Haven't got dinner yet, and everything closes in basically, I think an hour. So if I could do this in 30 minutes, then I can probably get to a place before they close, either 8 or 9. Not sure, but I don't really have food here. But that's enough of that. I will just talk about this. And I am going to go over chapter 7, sharing roles of behavior. So last week me and the guys talked about inheritances, and this is more about sharing roles with modules. So not so much inheriting. Technically, it kind of inherits. So if we roll through the chapter, understanding roles, finding out roles, we talked about briefly about preparers and the different type of preparers in some of the past sessions. And preparers can prepare trips, and they have different methods that can be passed around. So rather than having a mechanic prepare a trip, and then also a travel agent. I'm not sure what the other one was, but since you've got multiple types of preparers, you want to be able to have inheritances and pass around those methods. But that's kind of like a repeat of what we already talked about in previous chapters. But just want to show real quick the modules and how modules are working. So we have a schedule class and a schedule method just to check to see if the looks like we're passing in schedulable and start date and end date, and doesn't really do anything. It just shows that the schedulable class, so whatever it happens to be, this schedule is not scheduled between, and we'll just do the start date and date. That was an example. I don't know why I spent time doing that, but I just wanted to show it a module. So prior we were inheriting using the arrow syntax and inheriting from like the bicycle class and other classes. What is going to happen is these methods schedulable and scheduled, and lead days are going to be handled a little bit differently. So for now, a bicycle is created, and then you can check to see if a bicycle is scheduled, and then you'll get a response to see that example that I just went through to see if the bicycle is schedulable. So what they talk about with modules is oops, what just happened? Abstracting. So doing some abstractions. Where we're at. So rather than throw those methods into a class, the schedulable is now a module, and those methods are the same. So you can check to see if it's schedulable, and also see if it was scheduled, and then also have a default of 0 lead days. So that way now, if you have a bicycle, you can just include schedulable, and you have access to all these methods as long as you include it. So it's different from inheriting. Just for the fact that, so we kind of hinted at composition, which is the next chapter. It's kind of setting up composition basically without, I don't know if I can explain composition very well, but next week we will explain it. So we have the lead days, which we can now override, because here in this example it says you can override the includers, which is bicycles including this, can override the 0 days. So now we have bicycle and we have lead days. So now we're okay. So now we're creating dates, or we're parsing these strings to make them dates. Which actually, I don't use that. I don't use that method enough. Actually, I need to make a note of that to use that in future. But that's beside the fact. So now we have a bicycle. We're creating a bicycle, and you still have access to the schedulable method. by passing starting and ending day, and you get the same response. And that's just by abstracting. So this code would have been repeated, or it would have been inherited. But modularization is a better way of a better choice over inheritances, for the simple reason that you're able to reuse that simple code. You're able to reuse it, not just on bicycles, but you could also use it on, well, you would use it on, you could also use it on trips, other things that are schedulable. So a trip and a bicycle wouldn't necessarily inherit from each other, but they could both be schedulable, if that makes sense. Also, if you want to do like air travel or whatnot, you just include the schedulable model, and all you have to do is pass the dates, create dates for you, and then if you need to set lead days, then you can see set lead days. So if the day, I think what the lead days is actually, if the day is 0 days in advance, then you can schedule it. And if it's less than 0 days or less than lead days and you can't schedule it, I think is the way the code is working. I guess I could probably look that. Actually, I'm not really sure how lead days work, but that's besides the fact. Yeah, and yeah, so like I said, mechanic can be schedulable, and you can set the lead days, and a mechanic wouldn't necessarily inherit from bicycle. Vehicle is the same thing, schedulable right here. And so that in a nutshell is basically what it is. This is a little diagram as far as the object in the bicycle and mountain bike class. It's got a mountain bike is a class, the bicycle is a super class. So you can call super, which we kind of talked about last week in the discussion, the last video I made, the guys. And we'll kind of explain more of that. And then bicycle superclass is the object class, which is the generic object class in Ruby. Or it could be whatever language, but we happen to be doing Ruby. So when you include schedulable, you include those. I guess schedulable, if you look at the chain, schedulable actually gets injected above bicycle. So that way, bicycle or mountain bike inherits from bicycle. So now mountain bike also has access to the schedulable method. That's another thing to point out. So yeah, modules get inherited above the class. So anything that inherits from that class will have access to that module. And that is about it. There is another, she kind of mentions towards the end of this chapter that it's pretty nifty to have modules and to be able to use them left and right for different reasons. But she also, just like inheriting, you kind of want to take a step back and make sure that you're not creating more coupling of code. For example, you don't want to have things super dependent on modules or expect certain information from modules. For example, it can get pretty hairy for the date objects. Those could become problems if you start being very specific in how the date should be retrieved. For example, we're just getting generic date objects based on that date. But like say if you wanted to add like date time and you had like time zones and stuff like that, and if you needed the UTC or whatever, it's a word of caution basically to make sure you're writing inheritable code. And I just did that again. But yeah, understand coupling, the first implementation of spares. So the previous chapter talks about spares. I'm in the wrong chapter. I like how I just started talking about it like I knew what I was talking. Yeah, so recognize the anti-patterns. Yeah, there are two anti-patterns, and she goes into more details of different ways of preventing anti-patterns and then insisting on abstraction. All code abstractions should apply inheritance, faulty abstraction causing inheritances when interacting with these awkward objects. Programmers forced to know their quirks and dependencies. Okay, yeah. So yeah, that's the chapter in a nutshell. Yeah, inheritance is a pretty awesome thing to use. I enjoy using inheritances. I actually try to when I see there's a lot of code happening, like some classes in Ruby can get up over 500 lines. It's very possible. Usually, so we talked about the Sandy Metz rules the very first week, and one of the rules was if something's over 100 lines, if a class is over 100 lines, then it might be a red flag to maybe see if there certain things can be abstracted into its own objects. And yeah, that's something to look into. Definitely. So yeah, I usually try to abstract certain things. So the schedulable module was an easy example of abstracting into its own module. But other things like even like login functionalities, that there's certain unique things that happen. Like if you have like a Twitter or OmniAuth or a Facebook thing going on, certain things like that. If you start getting more and more OmniAuth for your login credentials when you sign into your application. This is an example. Nothing to do with the project we're working on, but if you did have that, you could always abstract that into its own module to include in different login functionalities. But again, the best thing to look at is the Sandy Metz rules and checking out and making sure that you fall within line. And if not, make sure you have a good enough reason on why you're over 100 lines or why you have so much repeated code happening in your different classes. But other than that, that's chapter 6. Unfortunately, I did rush through this because I am hungry. I am going to get some food. Normally I do this at work, and I have all the time in the world to do this. And usually not hungry for some reason, but now I am. So other than that, this is it. Hey, if you guys are willing or want to join jumping in next week, we do have a project that's going on for Ruby newbies. I've done a poor job of making sure everybody knows what's going on. Mind that. So, I just want to give you guys since some people have been commenting on the YouTube videos for these sessions. I wasn't anticipating that, but if you aren't aware, Ruby Newbies is a site. It's a Slack community. If you want to have access to it, all you have to do is scroll to the bottom, hit sign up, and you get instant access to our Slack community to be able to talk to other people learning Ruby at the same time as you. Or if not, if you know more Ruby than you think other people do, we also love having people who can answer questions. We do have a help section of our Ruby Newbies Slack group that gets a lot of activity. We get at least quite a few questions throughout the week. So if you feel like you know the answers to them, please log in and jump in there. If not, we do have a book club, which is this thing that I'm doing right now. And with that book club, I did want to show that we do have a project that we are working on. If you watched the previous videos, you'll see that we are working on a project called the Bacon Rating. And so far, we now have 6 passing tests for now. This project's not really doing much of anything yet. We still need to add credits. We do have some issues that we need to be solved. And so if you feel like you're up to speed, please jump in. And I'm just making this. Yeah, but other than that, this is the end of this session. I appreciate you guys watching this video, and hopefully we'll see you next week.